Hi, my name is Kristen Athene, and for the Little Indians project, I chose the theme of addiction. For the first slide, I chose this quote because it gives us some insight into how the character of this story sees himself. This is important because we want to explore how the theme of the project, addiction, affects Jackson, who is the character. The image that I chose for the slide, I wanted an image that captured the essence of the character of Jackson. I feel this image allows us to see the person, not the circumstances or the surroundings, but the human being with the addiction. For the second slide, I chose this quote because Jackson's circumstances are the product of his addiction. Jackson is homeless mostly in part because of his day to day decisions that revolve around his addiction to alcohol. I chose the image because it depicts someone that sees themselves as successful, as you can say, on top of the world. Jackson actually views himself as a successful homeless person and something that he's good at. So for the third picture, or the third quote, I chose this one to highlight one of the ways Jackson's daily decisions are affected by his addiction. After panhandling for a couple of hours, him and his crew decided to spend what they earned on alcohol. And this picture depicts a man that is dirty. The man is wearing work gloves, and it appears that he is in the process of taking them off after a long day of work. This is how Jackson actually feels after spending a few hours panhandling. He views these activities as hard work, thus earning a reward. So for the fourth slide, I chose this quote because it sets up the juxtaposition of the story. Jackson finds out his grandma's regalia that was stolen is for sale at a pawn shop. He spends the remainder of the story trying to earn money to buy it back. He's constantly balancing his mobility and his addiction. So the image, while this is an image of a storefront that could possibly be a pawn shop, what attracted me to the picture was the large text at the top that reads reliable. This is how Jackson sees himself. He wants to be that reliable person that can get back what was taken from his family so long ago. For the next slide, I chose this quote after getting $20 from the pawn shop owner. Jackson and his crew decide to take that money and their loose change to buy alcohol. Alcohol, he says, is needed to figure out how they're going to raise the money to buy the regalia back. I chose this quote because it shows his addiction influencing his decisions. The picture that I chose to go along with this shows math problems and possible solutions. Jackson realizes he needs a plan, a solution to buy back his family heirloom, and at the same time sees the only way to do that, to find that solution, is through his addiction. So for slide 6, I chose this quote because it highlights one of the real life side effects of an addiction to alcohol. Jackson knows enough to know that he has to eat and hopes he can keep it down. The food and the nutrients will keep him alive, but his addiction may actually kill him. So the image that I chose represents the bondage that Jackson's addiction keeps him in. That bondage keeps him drinking, even though he knows it's harmful to his body. He's aware that it is the very thing that could actually end his life. And for the next slide, I chose this image, or I chose this quote um, because after buying the winning lottery ticket, Jackson's first instinct is to go to the bar. He has forgotten about the Has he forgotten about the regalia? Did he forget how important it was? This is another example of Jackson's life being led by his addiction. The image of the wheelbarrow full of money um, shows um, shows that he knew this was a lot of money. Um, the use of the word carried adds a weight to the statement. He didn't take the $80 to the bar or put it in his pocket. He carried it like something heavy, something of value. Um, this next slide, I selected this quote because on a deadline um, comes to mind. He is on a deadline to come up with enough money to buy back his grandmother's regalia. Jackson spends several hours at the bar feeding his addiction. The money he carried over to the bar has all been spent on alcohol for him and the other Indians in the bar. Um, the image I chose, I didn't choose for the image for obvious reasons. I chose it for the reference to time, for the slogan of Timex. Um, the slogan is it takes a ticking and takes a licking and keeps on ticking. The author's choice to describe these Indians as not just drinking, but drinking hard is intentional, I believe. He highlights the day of an alcoholic when he says, drinking hard after a long, hard day of drinking. Just like this image, they keep on drinking. And then for this slide, I chose this quote after a lengthy conversation with a cop where Jackson tells him about the regalia. We get a sense of how important it is that he gets it back. He tells the cop he's on a mission and wants to be seen as a hero. So, with that, I chose the image where it's just like the firefighter armed with an axe and ready to save someone's life. Jackson has a moment of clarity and feels bound by duty to get back on track. And then the last slide, I selected the quote after 24 hours of earning and drinking, Jackson returns to the pawn shop. When he was asked if he worked hard for the $5 he had left, he replied yes. While he has the best intentions, merely every decision in the last 24 hours was a result of his addiction to alcohol. Outside of drinking a lot, it doesn't appear that he worked very hard at all. So I chose the image to go along with it because it depicts what Jackson spent the majority of his time doing. He kept getting sidetracked because of his addiction to alcohol. The regalia meant something to him. Redeeming something for his family meant something to him, but his addiction meant more. Nearly every penny was spent on alcohol. Were it not for the goodness of the pawn shop broker, he never would have gotten the regalia back. And to be honest, I have a feeling it won't be long before the family heirloom is hanging in a window at a pawn shop, in another pawn shop in the future.